Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Uncommon Truth today. I'm pretty excited about today. I've got Bob co-hosting with me as usual, and I've got a really special friend of mine, Nathan Freitas. He's coming to us from Nashville, and I'm give you just a brief introduction to him. And as today we're going to be talking. We're going to actually be talking about the power of proximity and the importance of the relationships that we have in our life. So no further ado, I want to introduce my good friend Nathan. Nathan's a digital entrepreneur and a coach that shows other creatives how to create reoccurring revenue streams that allow them to thrive in their business. He's the host of the Top 100 podcast, the Creative Entrepreneur Blueprint, where he interviews successful entrepreneurs that have figured out how to monetize their business by taking chances, tweaking their mindsets, and achieving what others have thought was not possible. Nathan has 13 years of experience leading sales and marketing programs for Fortune 100 companies like Salesforce.com and Microsoft. He also runs a successful portrait and fashion photography business. He's known for his contagious passion, positivity, and ability to consistently make things happen. So I can affirm all of those because Nathan and I have had some really cool adventures ourselves, being in Fiji with Tony Robbins and the Life and Wealth Mastery together, and just many, many other great encounters over the last several years. So as we begin the show, we're going to be talking about the uncommon truth about relationships and the power of proximity. So Bob, what is your view or belief about the power of proximity and the power of the people and relationships we choose in our life? Kick us off.
Thanks, Heath. Good to see you guys. Let's just be clear about that word for a second, just for our listeners and viewers. Heath, what does proximity mean? And so to me, it means, tell me if I'm wrong on this, it means the people you hang with, the people that influence you, the people that you get advice from, the people that you look up to, the people that teach you the lessons that that are powerful in your own life. So you learn from them, you watch them, they have an impact on you. Am I close?
You just nailed it right on the head, as always, brother. Thanks for bringing that clarity and simplicity to that word for me.
Well, it's interesting because you go through high school and you have your friends around you, and then maybe you go on to university or go on to your first jobs, and there's more people around you. And what happens is, it seems to me that people attract other people, and sometimes it's a fantastic attraction. It really works well, but a lot of the time they're just people that you're hanging with because there's nobody else there you spend that time with. So my particular case, that's what I found, is I found myself in my early mid-20s, and I had a series of friends around me, a series of influencers around me. But on closer inspection, they weren't really that helpful. Maybe they weren't even true friends. They were just acquaintances that we were spending time together with. So one of the very important lessons that I learned in life was that I had to jettison some of my friends. I had to move on from the relationships that were taking a lot of time out of my life. And some of them were really quite negative influences at that time, that I actually made cold, hard decisions. And some relationships I just let go, and I moved on. But the most powerful lesson was to actually be intentional about it and to seek out the people that I wanted to hang with, to look for people of character, people with same virtues as myself, people that could provide some positive value in my life, and then actually intentionally approach them in one way or another and actually become friends, become acquaintances, become business partners over the years. So what a tremendous life skill it is to create your own proximity, power of proximity, by having the people around you that make your life better.
Really well said. That the power of the relationships we choose, and to do it intentionally, right? As we talk about, we need to live intentionally focused on executing and choosing those relationships. So Nathan, thanks for being here today. What are your thoughts on that, the power of our relationships and the proximity we choose?
It's interesting. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Bob, your take on it, and Heath, just knowing how we met. I believe so much in the power of proximity. I actually sitting here getting emotional. Like, I emote through my eyes. So I'm thinking about all of the career advancements that I've made in my life and the relationships that I have, and they all come from proximity. I literally I can remember at one point in my life I was like, I don't want to be in sales anymore. I want to be in marketing. And so I actively went out and I met with some of the best marketers within Salesforce.com and in the Bay Area. And through those relationships, I'm riding my bike 45 minutes to grab drinks with a guy in like this, Palo Alto, this like really beautiful area of California, just to have that proximity to learn from them, right? And he's recommending a book, and I'm reading that book, and then I'm following up with him. And so, all of those relationships got me into marketing, and then those relationships got me somewhere else. And then, so it's one of those things that I think people take for granted, but if you do approach it from a place of intentionality, it's life-changing. And I can go on and on about it, but I believe wholeheartedly that proximity is incredibly powerful, if not one of the most powerful things that you can have in your life.
It reminds me of our story of landing in Fiji, and we're standing in line, and I was talking with Erwin, and you just took the chance, opened up, and began. And man, what a 10 days it ended up creating, and the relationship that we've created, and just by one choice to ask a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, again, it's, if someone's listening to this, you might take it for granted, but for me, it was a big deal because I'm very guilty of, and I think there's kind of this invisible barrier between the true power of proximity and where you are today. And me meeting you, Heath, right, it was such a great example. I'm standing there in line. We're going through immigration, right, or going through customs, whatever it was, right, to get into Fiji. And you guys were standing in front of me, right? A little pack, right? 3 guys, super fit, high energy, had Tony hats on. So I knew you were going to the same thing I was going, and I'm by myself. And that little voice in my head, my voice in my head said, "You're not good enough. You don't belong with these guys. You're way above your league." But I looked at that voice and I said, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well said.
And of course I introduced myself to you, and 30 minutes later, we're sharing our life stories over coffee. You're working out with bands in the front of the airport. People are looking at us like we're freaks. And right, we grab an hour long taxi ride, and the rest is history. So yeah, proximity is ridiculous.
Yeah, well said, gentlemen. Great stories. And that's the question. Heath talks about the power of proximity, and I think Nathan's nailed it, right? It is really a superpower to overcome your first inclination, which is not to say hi, not to say hello in that lineup, right? And we've talked about this before, Heath, but the root of that problem, the root of choosing not to say no is really fear. It's like, I'm not good enough. I don't belong with those guys. I'm not in the same league. Those are the words you use, Nathan. And the truth is you don't know that. So you did the right thing. You stepped boldly, you stepped intentionally forward, and you created that relationship by overcoming the fear and moving forward. And that is the secret power that everybody has, but they're hesitant to use it because of fear.
Oh, thanks, Bob. As always, you just nailed it, and it's going to segue us into the next question. But the truth, our quest that we have here with the uncommon truth, the truth is actually the big fear killer, in one simple word, because fear is simply a lie that we're all choosing or not choosing to believe. And that one choice in the story that Nathan shared about him and I in the beginning of our relationship has blessed my life beyond measure, with a friend that we will journey through life together, sharing ideas and business and life, and how do we just keep holding each other accountable. and we touch base regularly just to catch up, to support, to empower each other, and to really hold ourselves to a standard, right? And those are the things that we've really learned through this. And that's the truth, that fear is just a lie. So let's ask some other, the next question then. Do we really think the old wise tales are true or false? And I'm talking about the wise tales or old phrases such as, who you hang with is who you become. The second one, birds of a feather flock together. Or one that's more about, not about people, it's about another form of proximity, what we eat. Is it true? You are what you eat. So these are just three of, and I could go on for hours. As you know me, I'm an acronym king, and I love to ask these type of philosophical questions. What do you guys think? And we'll start with you, Nathan, on this one, and then we'll go to Bob afterwards. But what do you think about those three questions? Are they true or false?
Yes. They're true, man. They're true. I challenge anyone to argue against that. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I mean, okay, we'll go back to Fiji. Fiji is a great example. I chose to go to Fiji, and I was actively looking at my life in both areas of finances and in physical fitness, right? Like just physical well-being, not like, oh, I care about six-pack abs, but it's like the energetic part of my being, and that's my body, right? It gets me through my life. So I was looking at those things, and from an intentional place that I wanted to be as best as I can in those and continue to grow in those. So instead of going online and finding YouTube videos and fitness courses, which are all perfectly fine, I had the opportunity to push through a little fear, which was, I spent $10,000, right? Which is probably how much I spent to go to Fiji, flights and stay and all that stuff. I would be around 100 people that are willing to put that amount of effort and money on the table to also pursue greatness in those areas. So as a direct result of that, I come out of that event not only with the relationships with people like you, Heath, and people like you, Bob, that I can continue to learn from both business and fitness, which is funny, right? Like Heath, I think you're like 10 years, 15 years my senior, and you're in better shape than I've ever been. So it's like, you know, yes, birds flock together. You know, I purposely went into that pool. All those birds were bathing in Fiji, and benefiting from that. I swear, my network of people here, of friends and business partners here in Nashville, is a direct relation to Fiji. And like Erwin introduced me to one guy here. That guy introduced me to 10 others, and it just went out from there. I have my friend network. I don't have anyone in my friend network except for two close friends that I've known for 20 years. Everyone else is brand new because I've intentionally looked at growing these areas of my life. So yes, I believe those wives' tales are incredibly true.
Thoughts on diet and eating? How much of an impact does the proximity of our food impact us? What do you think about that in life?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. That's something near and dear to my heart right now. I've been constantly reforming what I eat. So for me, I would rephrase it. It's not you are what you eat. I think it's you feel, right? Like you feel as a result to what you eat. And for each person, that's different. You know, I've lived a vegan life for many, many years. And then it was about 2 years ago, I started intermittent fasting heavily with just clean Whole30 type meals, right? Like a really good meat source, a good carb, like a sweet potato, and, you know, a really rich vegetable source. And I felt that I had the most energy. I was the less hungry. You know, food was more of a joy at that point. It was less about me dieting and tracking calories. And that gave me energy in my body, and it gave me energy to focus on the day. So totally. And, you know, on the Sundays where I do nothing, Sunday's my day of rest. And I've had days where I sit there on the couch and I'll watch 4 hours of like just back-to-back movies, and I'll binge eat on donuts. And guess how I feel Monday, right? I feel like a fat donut. right? So yeah, listen. I think if you intentionally go at something, well, no, take that out. If you let something into your life, whether it's a relationship, it's food, it's a thought, it will manifest itself in your life, in your body, in a way that's either beneficial or not, and it's your choice.
Yeah, I agree. So, Bob, what do you think, brother?
Well, I love the discussion, gentlemen. Boy, you guys are inspiring me today to go and get some new friends.
Hey!
I'm leaving this meeting.
I'm wasting my life. One of the uncommon truths about life is that a lot of people have major skills in minor areas, and they have minor skills in the major areas of life. So I remember that I learned very early how to put the puck in the top corner of the net in hockey. It's a that is a that is a major skill, but it's a minor area in life. I played recreational hockey all my life. Didn't make any money from it, so it's a minor area, but a major skill, right? But some of the major skills, like how to manage your finances, should you get married or not, and who should you marry? How should you raise your children? What business should you be in? Should you be an entrepreneur? Leadership skills of life. These are major areas in life. A lot of people have minor skills in those areas. In fact, we're not really taught as young people growing up about most of those things or any of those things. I wasn't, for sure. And the power of proximity is finding people that are good in those areas. So if you can align yourself with a person that's really good at financial management, they become part of your inner circle or part of your sphere of influence, then you're going to learn a ton about financial management over time with that person, if you're intentional about it. So I think there's tremendous opportunity for all of us at any age just to see where are my minor skills in major areas, and where do I seek out people where I can actually learn from and grow from, and then become involved with those people. So I just loved Nathan's. He's on a bike. He's traveling across town for a 45-minute coffee with a guy that knows something that he needs to know more stuff about, right? Because that's a major area in his life. And that is an amazing lesson for any one of us. Be intentional. Seek out people in the major areas of life. Become involved in them. Ask for their advice. Put the fear aside. And that's a really interesting strategy, is to actually ask for help. Anybody successful that I've ever seen, anybody successful, and actually I would say to our listeners today, to each one of them listening, ask us, ask Keith, ask Nathan for advice. And I think you would not be surprised to say they'd be very interested to share some wisdom and some guidance with you, because that's been my experience. Almost any successful people, in fact, it's 100% in my case, of anybody that I've approached in the right way and said, listen, I've got this challenge, I've got this issue, would you mind sharing some of your knowledge with me, some of your experience with me? They've always said yes. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they'll book a time with me. They'll do it on the phone, they'll do it face to face. And what richness that is. People want to give. People want to give back. People want to be included. People want to share, usually. So put that fear aside, reach out.
I think that both of you have said some really clear and really wise things here. And I think one of the things that I've really learned, and I'm really striving to implement in my life, is to raise my standards every single day, try to be better. And how do I do that? How do I improve? Simply put, I got to ask better questions. And that's what this is all about. Seeking the uncommon truth is about how are we going to ask better questions and improve the quality of our life. And that'll be one of the things that we're going to be talking about in our course and programs, the ideal form of life, that we will talk about more in the weeks ahead. But really being clear and really seeking to not be afraid and to ask the better quality questions is really going to drive us forward in our adventure. And I think the biggest question now then is, how do we ask and find a way to choose those personal and professional relationships that are going to empower us to move forward and gain the knowledge and the expertise that we need to improve our skills and to drive forward? So, guys, who wants to start first on sharing how they choose and set standards around choosing their personal and professional relationships?
I've got a bit of a story, guys, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
It is.
So I found myself at 29 years of age in a life transition. My marriage had crumbled, and I had two children, a house, a fantastic booming career, and it all crumbled in a matter of 6 months. In 6 months, it was basically gone. And about a year after that, I found myself asking some of the questions we're asking today. It's like, where are my friends? Like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here on planet Earth? What am I supposed to be doing? Having spent a decade chasing something and having it fail miserably. And so I was playing hockey at the time, and there was a group of men that were entrepreneurs, 3 or 4 or 5 men in the room that were entrepreneurs. And we were just generally doing the normal sports talk in the room. But as I got to know them over that period of a year, I was pretty impressed with the way they spoke, their character, even though and even though I knew very little about them personally, I was quite interested to learn more about them. And so I had this idea, I had this vision of actually going on a retreat with men of like mind, talking about things like money management, being a father, being a good business person, taking care of yourself physically, spiritual growth. So I had 5 major areas that I was quite interested in developing. And I had this vision that, hey, let's pull together a group of guys. So you asked a question, what questions did you ask? And so that's what I did. One day I screwed up my courage and I phoned one of the guys on the team and I said, listen, I've got this vision, and explained my idea with my heart pounding in my chest because he was a very successful guy. And he said, I'd love to be part of that. And I was in shock. I was in shock, but I was thrilled too. And so I picked up the phone, I phoned the second guy, and he said, I would love to be part of that. And then I phoned the third, the fourth, and the fifth guys, and they all said, I would love to be part of that. And that was a big lesson for me. Maybe I don't think I was very grooved in the way I asked the question. It probably wasn't very fluid because I was a young man and probably not very skilled. But at the end of the day, we all went to that retreat. And that retreat, we're still together today. We're still together. We're still friends today, almost 40 years later. So what a
Wow.
yeah, what a blessing.
Hey, Bob, what made you listed out those 5 areas that you wanted to grow in? What made those 5 areas stand out? Is there something you did to identify those? Just felt it?
Well, after I'd gone through that math, or as I was going through the massive crisis, I started to do it. I started to look in the mirror, like doing some serious looking in the mirror. Before that time, I wasn't very reflective about who I was, what my skills were. I was just charging into a career, charging into a marriage, charging into a family, sort of like Don Quixote on a horse charging at a windmill, right?
Follow me.
That's crash. And after that, I really became, I looked at myself and I said, well, where did you go wrong? You're a pretty good guy, but where the heck did you go wrong? And I realized that in all those major areas, those 5 major areas, I really had very little knowledge. I was just hoping to learn as I went along. And so it really is the power of proximity. I learned you pretty well failed for the last 10 years on your own. Bring some people around you that were really good in these areas, or at least were had different experiences in those areas that they could share. So I just thought if I had 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 different people around me that were going through the same things, that there was wisdom there, that experiences there that they had gone through that I could learn from. And it's so true. It turned out to be the case. It was so obvious as soon as we got meeting with each other. Great value there.
Beautiful story.
How would you, bro? What do you think, Nathan?
it's funny. Very similar. It's very similar. I have since 2007. I've paid a business coach, a life coach, or different ones throughout the years. But I've paid someone to help me look at my life. What we call the wheel. And the wheel consists of a lot of the stuff Bob just talked about. Your friends and family relationships, your business, your business slash career, right? Your hobbies, finances, spirituality, your home, and romantic relationship. And so you would look at all of those, and I was constantly analyzing which ones were, not a 10 out of 10. Very rarely are they a 10 out of 10. Usually a 9 out of 10. Anything below a 7, I would look at, and I would then start to proactively say, okay, to get better in that area, what's needed. And a lot of that times it was a relationship. To Bob, your points. I'm not really good at finances. Well, which one of your friends are good at it? Or is there someone that you know that, or indirectly know, that has money that you can reach out to? Um, you know, so I did a very, very similar thing, but I want to add something to this because it's something that I've realized later in life. And I'm 39 this year. And a lot of my life, I have been striving. When I look at that wheel and I looked at the areas that were less than ideal, I was striving to build relationships and improve in those areas. But underneath that drive was this belief that I wasn't good enough. And so I believe that power of proximity is really important. But I want to encourage anyone that's watching or listening to this to make sure you take a step back and really get honest with themselves about what's driving those areas of growth. And really, ask yourself, is that something that is in line with what I really want? Or is it something that I'm doing because I think I should have it? I think I should make $1 million because that seems to be what brings happiness. But do I really want it? So that to me is has helped me change how I go about choosing these personal or business relationships now, even more than ever, right? Because now I take those areas of my life that I want to improve in, but then I map in the things that are core values of me. And my most core value is authenticity. And I know that word's used a lot, but for me to build a relationship with someone, especially a personal relationship, I want to know that I can get real with them, and I can tell them that I'm pissed off, or I can tell them that I'm, I've got close friends that I've done a FaceTime with, and I'm in the midst of my divorce. I'm laying by my fireplace in tears, right, at the lowest of the lowest, and these people are able to take that energy and accept it. That to me is, whether it's business or personal, if they can't handle that intensity of real life and emotions, then it's not a relationship that I want in my sphere. So that's how I go about choosing the relationships that I have in my life.
And Nathan, let me just build on that thought before I lose it here. I love your comment about transparency and authenticity, and you need that in these relationships in order for it to be real and impactful. I would also say that really good people hold you accountable, so they call you when you're not going in the right way. So I know that Heath and I, as an example, have got that relationship where uh, we have an obligation and a responsibility to say no. Think that through. From my perspective, I think you should think that through, or you're bang on that idea, right? So you have to hold people accountable. You have to be brave enough and strong enough in all those major areas to actually hold them accountable, and that's where massive richness comes when you have relationships with either business associates or friends or family members, where you can say hard things and have respectful conversations, but draw the line where you think they're not ethical, not moral, but just simply going down the wrong road, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, just amazing, the way you've shared it. And it's really brought some things to light for me and helped me actually go back to a few things that lead to standards. That for me, it's about truth, right? And how I choose um, the people, the men that I surround myself with are based on all the things that you've just described. And I'll try to put it into a really concise statement. Seeking truth. I want to be around men that have the superpowers of vulnerability, about character, the ability to be congruent, which is who they are and who others see them as are aligned. And you can picture this like two circles. The person that we all view ourselves as and who we want to be, and then the second circle of who others see us as. And I look at my life and I can share so many times where I've unfortunately not met my standards, and who I am or who I want others to see me as don't align. Or who actually the truth is who they see me as and who I think I am are two different things. And I'd like to think that as I'm maturing and growing and as I've entered this decade of the 50s, you know, I want to be more congruent. I want the truth of who I am and who others see me as to be aligned. So now, back to this whole point of how do I choose the people I'm in proximity to? I want to be around people that are congruent, and that requires truth. That requires the superpower of vulnerability. So I'm asking those key questions like you, Nathan, you know, from that this exercise we call the Wheel of Life, where I now have chunked it down to 4 main chunks, right? And this is going to lead us into our last question of the day, but what is the form of life? What's my ideal form of life that I want? Those form is an acronym. It's family and friends, relationships, it's occupation, it's my work and wealth, it's my recreation, that health and wellness, and lastly, the motivation, the spiritual and the passions of life that I want. So I'm looking, Nathan, like you, to find men that, not just men, people that I can surround myself with, that their strength is better than mine in those areas. I don't focus on making my weaknesses stronger. I'm going to focus on making my strengths stronger by setting a higher standard and seeking to be around people that are actually better than me. I can't become anything. I just have to be it. And the only way I can be it or absorb that is by getting around men like you. People that are really focused on improving and increasing their standards. And this is a key element that I think leads us into our real last question of the day is, do we have different standards in our personal relationships or our professional relationships? Are we willing, when money's involved, to compromise? Are we willing to keep our character, which is really what we're talking about, true? Because character, to me, is defined by what I do all the time, not by what I do some of the time. Truth and integrity doesn't really give a shit about what I think, about what you think, or even what they think. It only gives a shit about the truth. It is what it is. It's being that. So that gets us back to it. Are we men that can say that we're men of character, that our standards don't waver in personal or professional relationships? What do you guys think?
Well, it might be that in the different stages of life, you're able to handle or you see standards at different levels, and you're able to actually make your interactions with people materialize at different levels. I'll give you an example. Interestingly enough, Nathan, you're just going into your 40s. Heath, interestingly enough, you're just going into your 50s. And strangely enough, I'm just going into my 60s.
Wow.
So you can see the power of proximity just by the three of us getting together. Nathan, you've got a guy that's been through his 40s. I've been through my 50s as well, right? So in terms of standards and working with people with character, in my 60s, I really see not only making sure that my friends and my family members are aligned with the same values and the same virtues, but I want my clients to be aligned with the same values and the same virtues too. So when I go into, and I could never say that in my 20s or my 30s or even my 40s, Nathan, and I hope that you will. Like, we should choose our clients and our customers the exact same way as we choose our friends. So that's the wisdom that I've gained through the years, and I'm firm on that because I know how painful it is to have a customer with poor character at the end of the day. So I think that that's part of our role and responsibility and obligation as leaders of our businesses, leaders of our families, leaders of in our communities, is to seek out people with the same virtues, the same values, the same character, the same standards, and better character, better standards. That's part of my role and responsibility as a leader.
How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, it's really powerful. I'm sitting here just digesting these words of wisdom because I am so young, guys.
You started to shave. You didn't start to shave yet. No, you haven't.
Young and ignorant. No, in all seriousness, yeah, I'm actively learning this. So hearing you articulate it, Bob and Heath, it is very, very powerful. I have not. There have been a couple of financial deals that I've made this past 2 years that I regretted because I went against that feeling in my gut, which said this person doesn't have the level of standards that I believe in, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But now in hindsight, like, oh yeah, that's where we were off, and that's why this isn't working. I'm also doing it. You know, Bob, you're talking about clients. I'm in the process of, career transitions, and actively detailing out who my dream customer is, that dream customer avatar. And I'm going to include my standards in that, because it makes so much sense to me. But it's very easy to get caught in the, I don't know, call it the rat race, call it the ego, but it's like, this person's what they're gonna give me $10,000, $50,000 to do this project. But if they're ethically off, at some point, that it's not worth that money, right? And I have been lucky enough to now see that, like, it's not, God, money's just another form of energy, right? And $50,000, it feels like crap. It feels like crap, right? It doesn't matter what the number is, right? You're like, I'm willing to say I could care less. I had this epiphany. I'm kind of going on a tangent a little bit, but I'll bring it back around, I promise. I had this epiphany the other day, especially with COVID and quarantining and concerns around the stock market. There's a lot of fear happening right now. And one of the things that I've really focused on is finding grace and gratitude in as many situations as possible. And so here I was in the midst of kind of all of this, and still going through, divorce stuff, feeling all of that weight, and had gone out for a walk with my dog. And I was out there and the sun was shining on my face. And it was in that moment where I realized there is nothing that can take this away from me, right? Like I'm resourceful enough to get food and water and take care of my kids. and still be able to go out, regardless of the car I have, the money I have, the house I have, regardless of any of that. I could go out, feel that sun on my face, and be grateful. And so I take that, and I will continue to take that level of, that's a standard for me. That's how I approach life. And I want my business partners and I want my friends and family to share elements of that. They don't have to match me, right? Because there's going to be things that I'm stronger at. There's going to be things they're stronger at. But if they're willing to lean into those areas, and kind of play in my pool of standards, then I will happily do business with them and have relationships with them.
I think how you just said it, one word just screams at me right now, and it's called alignment. Being in alignment with the people that we're around, right? Why are you and I aligned? You and I, Nathan, have always been willing to be vulnerable, to actually say it like it is. We both know that we haven't hit it out of the park every time. It's funny how all three of us have had that unfortunate experience of divorce. And we're men that don't believe in divorce.
Yeah.
You know, so this is right to the soul of who we are as men, of integrity. And it's just been, they're all different journeys, and I'm sure we'll get to share on the Uncommon Truth at different times and or different topics. But, you know, that alignment leads me to a question that I think it has to be asked is, you know, how do we differentiate and how do we really know if somebody is aligned with us? And it keeps coming into my head, and I'll share it, and then I'll ask you to answer it, is that there's a good book I read every day, Fruit. The fruit tells us about the root. The fruit of an apple tree, sometimes as an example, will come out and it's just perfect. It's round, it's bright, it's red. But every once in a while you'll go to a tree and they're knotted and they're misshaped, the apples, and they're smaller, or they could be deformed, whatever it might be. And I'll never forget when I lived in Penticton, and the orcharder told me one time, it has nothing to do about the fruit. That tree's root is not healthy. And I need to go in and deal with the roots and help get the root healthy, and then the fruit will come out and be fixed. So how do we know if someone's roots are healthy when we're looking at a person? Because we all pretend, and it's so easy for us to in a moment be something we're not. And ultimately I come back to this word, it's about the habits. It's about the rituals that people are doing. The character is formed by our rituals that drive our results. The root comes down to, what are they doing daily, consistently? Look into that. And I think this is an important thing for us as we move to, you know, bring kind of a conclusion to this power of proximity. How do we know if someone's being truthful with us? How do we know if this is who they are? Well, what I've kind of is popping in my head right now is that the overall attitude of a person, the character of a person, is not done once. It's done repeatedly. And that's what we need to look into, is what are they doing repeatedly to get their fruit? The fruit, if it needs words to explain it, is probably not the truth. It should just ooze out, right? The actions that they're doing without words will show it. If someone has a certain physique, you can tell what activities have been done to get that type of physique, just as a simple example, right? Couch potato shows what habits and actions. A Olympic athlete shows what they've been doing. You don't have to ask. So what do you guys think about that? How do we know that we're aligned with somebody? What would you say would be the words of wisdom you'd give to our listeners today to really know who they should be choosing to be in proximity to make a good choice.
You first, Bob. I want to learn from you. Hit us.
Good luck learning from me, my friend. Well, one of my things that I teach leaders on is emotional intelligence. We're not taught about our emotions when we're children. Of course, you have your seven basic emotions like happiness and sadness and joy and fear and those sorts of things. But there's actually a very complex web of emotions that are very subtle emotions. And there's actually, I think the number is 48. One of the models I looked at had 48 different emotions. And so, Heath, in answer to your question about how do we know whether we're aligned with somebody, I think we look at our emotions. So if we, during the interaction with somebody, if we're feeling fulfilled with the conversation or happy with the conversation or inspired by the conversation or excited by the conversation, on the positive side of the emotional paradigm, because emotions are divided up, positive emotions and negative emotions, then we're probably on the right track. So if you have friends around you and they're inspiring you, they're contributing significant things to your life and you feel significant around them, you're happy with them, they make you laugh, you're feeling fulfilled with those relationships, you're probably on the right track. But if you're feeling de-energized, that your energy is lower than after the interaction than it was before the interaction, if you're feeling sad after the conversation, if you're feeling uninspired, the negative side of things, then you're probably on the wrong track. The same thing with clients and vendors and people that you interact in the business world with. If they're not bringing you that inspiration, that joy, that significance, then you're probably not aligned. And I also like, Heath, what you said about the root. It is the root. So people are not necessarily the way they are today because of things that are happening today. It's the way things that happened to them when they were children and experiences they've had that made them the people that they are today. But you're probably not going to change that in clients. You're not going to be able to change their history, change their paradigms very easily or readily. So that's something to consider as well. It's like, even though the person is not a good fit for you right now, it's not like, I don't think it's our role to try to change them either necessarily at that time. You might feel differently though about your friends, your close friends. So I have had close friends that have not looked in the mirror, not reflected a lot on their past, had no one hold them accountable. And once you get into those discussions with them, they can change. People can change and do change. So some people are worth putting the time and effort into. You don't necessarily toss them out in my estimation, but sometimes you have to.
Mm. It's interesting. You were talking about this, that feeling that you get coming out of that interaction. Is it positive or negative, or however, I forget the exact words you were defined, but that's what I heard. Kind of the positive energy or the negative energy or lower energy. And I have found, and it kind of complicates things for me a little bit, but sometimes I've come out of conversations and that person actually could be in alignment with my standards, but because of the self-talk that was going on and the stuff that I'm working through, I came out in a lower energy state. And then only in hindsight, I was like, oh, that's because I was trying too hard or was not being true to myself, right? So it kind of adds a little bit of complexity there, but I totally agree with you. There's so much energy. That's why the virtual visits are hard right now, right? Because I'm getting a percentage of the energy that I would normally feel if I'm sitting across from the table from you. The things that I use in addition to what you shared, Bob, is seeing how people act in a moment of challenge or crisis.
Oh, good one.
Right?
Good one.
I've learned a lot about myself. Right? We all three of us gone through divorce. That's a crisis, right? That's an
Oh,
emotional, financial, all of that, spiritual crisis. And to see how I go through that, to see how others go through that, that tells me a lot of their character, how they handle themselves in those moments where things aren't perfect. And another thing that I love to do I do this a lot in, as long as video's fine, but definitely in person. You were talking about emotional IQ, and I'll use another term. I don't know if this exists or not, but I'm calling it emotional radar. And as you asked the question, Heath, I've realized this is something that I consistently do. I do emotional radar, right? The radar is where you're pinging, right? Like that, like the whales, right? They'll make a noise, or a dolphin will make a noise, and it'll come back, right? Or that's sonar, excuse me. Emotional sonar, that's what we're calling it, emotional sonar. So what I'll do is, in a conversation, I'll take one of those things that are important to me, one of those core values or standards, and I'll hit them with a question about it or a story about it, right? Like on a date, I'll get deep real fast, and I'll share something that is heartfelt, and it could be business, it could be in all these areas of my life, but I'll hit them with that ping, and I'll see what comes back, right? And you can see it in their body language. Sometimes people will buckle over, like, whoa, that's too heavy. Right? I can't handle that, right? And it's really interesting. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of peel back that onion, right? So is it too heavy because they're just not ready to talk about that right now? Totally understandable. Or is it too heavy because they could just care less, right? And when I find that it's the care less, like in business conversations, when I'm out there networking, and I talk about just my family and my focus on spending time with my family and not being constantly grinding, if they don't ping back in a way that resonates with me, not a fit, right? Like, I know they're probably an amazing businessman or businesswoman, but they're not someone who I'd be wanting to have further conversations with, because they don't, right? The sonar is not, it's too mushy, right? It's not hard enough of a response.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things that I do, in addition to what Bob had shared.
Wow.
Thanks.
I have been blessed by you two today, just so much. What I'm hearing is that, in a simple way, is that fire purifies, is what you just said. And that, the truth about people and the character comes out when there's a little bit of heat put on. A good question will bring out the truth. A truthful response is quite easy to see with how and that's that first reaction. What's that body doing? And those are some of the things that we've studied together through different courses, Nathan, and learning those things. And you, Bob, have taught me many of these things over the years. So I know a real simple one I always do now. I'm a nutcase golfer. Golf is like fire. It brings out the character of a person. Oh my goodness. And unfortunately, it's brought out a lot of bad in me at times, but I'll tell you, it is an example of something that you can do that's so simple. But an interview on a golf course, you'll know if they're a cheater. You'll know if they take life seriously. You'll know what they're
Can I share a story with you as for wrap? That's totally in line with all this. Okay. This is a great example of that the relationship not working, and it was it came out of golf. So early on in my career, I was a full-time college student. I was doing 20 units, university student, right? And I was newly married, and I had a newborn. So this is my senior year of university, and I was going. I was selling life insurance during the days I wasn't in school. I was waiting tables at night, and then full-time school load. So one of the things with life insurance is you build relationships on the golf course, especially out here in Nashville in the South, right? They're playing golf, no socks. For some reason that stood out. Penny loafers, no socks, and they're out there playing golf. So there was this doctor that I had been trying to get in with, and I'd met him for coffee, and in the conversation he mentioned he was playing golf, like the next weekend. I don't play golf. The most I had played was with a friend in high school. We'd chip in the morning, we'd go out, play, I don't know, 9 holes, but that was it. I'd done it maybe 3 or 4 times. So here I am, hungry to make money and support my family, hungry to fit in, right? I wasn't putting people through my standards. I was just trying to fit into theirs, right? And so I said, hey, I'd love to join you. He said, oh, great. All right, meet us here on this day and bring your own stuff. So now, then I go home. Now I'm hustling, trying to find someone who's got golf clubs because I don't have them. I don't even know where to get them. So I get shoes, golf clubs. End up meeting with this doctor and his group of friends, and we go out riding or we go out playing. And within the first 3 holes, my balls like just going all over the course, water hazards. I think by the 9th hole, I was cursing on the course. Was trying to drink to relax. It was a horrible experience. I just remember, I don't even think I said goodbye to the guy. Like it was such a horrible experience because you know what? I wasn't going by my standards. I was trying to force proximity as opposed to letting it flow. Right? I'm not a golfer, so that's not a place for me to work on proximity. Anyways, as you were sharing that, Heath, I just like, oh my gosh, it's so true. Golf and crisis will show you who you really are.
Well said. And it's something that I think that I'd like to take a crack at just trying to sort of summarize what we've learned, and the uncommon truth is about our conversation today about the power of proximity and the importance of the people and the relationships that we have in our life, and how it has an impact on us, and it really influences the direction and the trajectory of where we go. So the uncommon truth about relationships is that they matter a lot in all 3 of our lives, and that these old wise tales are true, right? Who we hang with is what we'll become. The food that we eat will affect our life and our health, and that those of a feather do flock together. These are all true statements. And really, who we hang with is what we're going to become, and that focus on surrounding ourselves with people that have the fruit that we want. So that if we really want to have the fruit that somebody has, well, then we need to focus on what they're doing and just copy them. What are the habits? What are the rituals that they're doing? Do that. And we're going to end up having the fruit that they have. If we want to be around happy people, that happiness is going to rub off, because we're going to start to do and think and ultimately then say what they say and end up in that type of attitude, and that really dictates our altitude of life. So I've really learned from you both today the uncommon truth that it is true. I need to continue to raise my standard, seek after surrounding myself with men like you that have character, that are vulnerable, that are truthful, that we can have these types of conversations so that I can grow and ultimately give what I've gotten from you. Those are the 3 things that I think that are really the truths here. Is that we got to be committed to growing and surrounding ourselves with good people so that we have more to give. And then from that, we're going to get that ideal form of life and the fruit that we want from it. So I just can't thank you guys enough and for your time today and just the opportunity to really share. Any last comments, guys, from you?
One of the things that actually nicely summed up, Heath and Nathan, excellent story there about the power of proximity and not adhering to some of the principles. One of the things we haven't talked about is how the power of proximity impacts the others that we care about. So we're all fathers here. The 3 of us are fathers. And I know that my children watch closely who I hang with. And they talk about my friends. They talk about my business associates. And they've learned valuable lessons that were not intentionally taught by people coming over to my house for dinner, me going to business meetings and having them there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So their character, their virtues, their principles of life have all been impacted by the people that I hang around with. So that's a very important thing to consider as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's you're spot on. I had the same experience. A friend of mine let me borrow his Tesla just for a joyride with my kids for a weekend. And I was going to get the car with my daughter. And this is one of my new friends, right? That's come through this, honestly, this Tony Robbins sphere of influence, Heath and all these folks here in Nashville. So yeah, we're going to get the car, and my daughter is looking at it. And not that this is the only thing that's important, but she looked at me and said, "Papa, why are all your friends rich?" And I smiled. I said, because they're doing the stuff, right, that I am trying to share with you. They wake up in the morning and they have mindfulness, right? They exercise, they eat well, they're out there doing stuff, adding value to the community. And this is what the universe is giving them. Right? That's why. It was just kind of funny to see the light bulb go off in her head. Like, oh, that's how this works.
Yeah, yeah. What a great life lesson, right? And
Yeah.
they would naturally think, right? Oh, that's interesting, but maybe I should be doing that too. Just such a
If that's important.
subtle.
Yeah.
It's that sphere of influence is such a powerful but subtle thing. Powerful and subtle.
I geek out. Sorry, this is my last comment, and then we can end, or you guys can take it anywhere you want. And by the way, if you're looking at this, I have COVID hair, so.
Hey, I'm envious of your hair, my friend. I am envious. I used to have your hair when I was 40.
Oh my gosh. As we're talking here, right, I'm geeking out because Rob, you bring up this idea of kids, but there is a ripple effect, right? Imagine, like, if you push through, not if, when whoever's watching and listening to this, when you push through that fear that someone's not willing to have a coffee with you or teach you about something or take you under their wing and mentor you, you can push through that. The ripple effect of doing that is transformative, because if you have kids, it potentially will impact them. Your friends, it'll impact them. Your family members, it'll impact them, and then others around them, right? Imagine if all of us humans were constantly going out and just building relationships with people that were of solid character, the massive world transformation you'd have, as opposed to spending time and ingesting the stuff that doesn't necessarily fill us with with goodness, right? Like, I just geek out about that. So that's the power of proximity there too, right? That ripple effect for the world.
I love that lesson, which it's going to be summed up by saying, make the call, man. Make the call. Make the call. Say what you have to say. And just along those lines, you might find this funny or maybe inspirational. So I'd gone through my divorce, 29-30, went through a massive change at that time, spent a fair amount of time looking at myself in the mirror and changing the people around me. And one day, one of my really good friends said, listen, I know this is like 4 or 5 years later. I've met this lady. She's professional. She's attractive. She's athletic. And I'd done the work. So those were the top 3 things on my list. And I said, well, what's her name?
Love it.
And so she says, here's the name. And I said, well, pass me on the number, buddy, because you've got you're dating. He's a single guy, but he had a good girlfriend. He goes, my relationship with my girlfriend is not going so good. And I'm thinking about giving this lady a call. If this other one dumps me, I'm going to give this lady a call. And so, being the good friend that I am, back in the old days, they used to have these things called telephone books for you 40-year-olds.
I remember them.
Alphabetically listed. So I knew her last name. I looked her up in the phone book. And what's the rule, man? You make the call. You make the call.
Wait. So you did call her?
Yeah, I just called her.
Yes.
So, but it's your lesson, which is, if you think there's somebody out there that can help you, if you think there's somebody out there you can learn from, if you think there's somebody out there that that would be a good person in your circle of influence, you make the call.
Yep.
So I made the call and I said to her, hi, her name. We've been introduced by a mutual friend. hoping to just have a quick chat with you. And it was on an answering machine at the time. She wasn't there. She calls me back the next night, and that was in 1992. And this year, 1993, I'm sorry. And this year in Vancouver, I got down on one knee with North Vancouver in the background with a giant engagement ring for the next 25 years of our marriage. So we've been married for 25 years because I made that call. And I just proposed another 25 years, and she said yes.
So, dude, I love it.
Yeah, perfect. That's, you know, so right back to the beginning, right back to the very beginning of this discussion. The very beginning of this discussion, we alluded to the point that the quality of our life is directly related to the quality of our questions. And I think the most important question we can ask is, who am I going to surround myself with? Who is going to bring me a new nugget that's going to transform my life? And here at The Uncommon Truth, we want to help people through transition and help transform lives through the renewing of our minds. So with that, guys, I want to thank you for today. Thank you for the wisdom that you've shared and in helping us understand the importance and the power of proximity. So, God bless. And until next time, live strong. Be good. I look forward to seeing you guys again on The Uncommon Truth. And to everybody out there, keep asking those good questions. Transform your mind. Seek the uncommon truth. Cheers.
Nathan, thanks so much, buddy. Great to
Thank
meet
you, boys. I look forward to us connecting
great to
again
meet you,
really
man.
soon.
Well, Nathan said there's great golf down there, so let's go golfing, brother.
That's it.
Come
brother.
on down, you guys. Come on down. I know this guy who's a great golfer here.
Oh yeah. You don't want to be golfing with him. He's a psycho. He's a psycho golfer. He's like, yeah.
Nice.
Sad.
Well, boys, thanks, Nathan. I appreciate your time. I'll touch base with you soon.
Sounds great. Bob, wonderful to meet you. See you around, bud.
Hey, buddy, listen, we've been introduced now. Anytime you need anything from me, we're associates. We're on our way to friendship, maybe. So I'm in your sphere of influence, bud. Don't hesitate.
Really appreciate that.
Peace, boys. Love you both.
See ya.
God bless. Rock your day.